Welcome in, Campo and Joe, fired up and ready to go. Campo and Joe brought to you by Beaver Chevrolet, and we get to come in with a win to talk about, which is pretty cool. Joe C. from XL Primetime. You can catch me noon to 3 weekdays on the Superstation. Our head coach, Dave Campo, here to celebrate it. We got back in the win column, Coach, so we're going to break it all down for him.
Listen, this is a fun show today because they've been few and far between. But this is, whenever you win, it's a great day.
Yeah, we've been trying to figure out what went wrong. Well, we still have some things that we have to figure out that went wrong, but at the very least, they were able to come back and score a win. So you want to score a win? Check out Beaver Chevrolet right there on Phillips Highway, beaverchevrolet.com. Thanks to all of them when it comes to purchase, servicing, just the people you work with, they will take care of you, and they're happy to bring us to you. So we say thanks to them. All right, so Coach, let's get into some of this stuff. And we came out of the London game on a 5-game losing streak. You and I break down this game against the Raiders. I'll give you credit on a couple things that you immediately saw that Jacksonville was going to be able to do. But lo and behold, they go down 17-0 in this ball game, and they fought back. So if you're putting your headline up here, what was the main thing that you would how would you tell the story?
Well, first of all, confidence level. This was a huge ball game. You know, a lot of people were saying must wins for about 3 weeks, but I really never felt it was a must win because we were close and we were working hard, and you could see that we were starting to do a few less dumb things. I hesitate to say stupid. I'll use the term dumb, but I put that moniker on that particular ball game because, you know, after a while, when you're talking about 5 games losing streak, something has to happen good just to make what the coaches are saying to you mean something.
Right.
And I know the coaches have been saying, hey, we're real close. We just need to eliminate this or that. And when the play's there, we just have to make it. This week they did. And here we go. You got to win.
Yeah, you go through some of the things early. They did a lot of what they had done before, which was go down the field, good set of plays to start the game off. They're going down the field. They're heading for the end zone. This was an answer drive after what the Raiders were able to do starting off. Lo and behold, they toss pitch it, and they cough up the football, which led me to tweet immediately, Coach, toss the toss. Get it out of the playbook. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be completely removed, but
well, now remember, they scored a touchdown on the same play, but it went to
later,
a different guy.
Yeah, later. Yeah, because the first one was to Jermichael Hasty. Yeah. Might have been a bad pitch from Trevor.
It was a little bad.
And they did score on the other one. But the other one that drove me crazy, Coach, was they tossed to Etienne on a 3rd and 1. So instead of having to gain 1 yard when he touches the leather, he's got to gain 5 yards. So it just drives me a little crazy.
Yeah, it really depends on how what they feel about those inside guys on defense, you know, because they're going to load it down. And if you can get it on the perimeter, you've got a chance. But again, that's, you know, I'm glad they ran the football when they did it. That, not the fumble, but the touchdown, as opposed to throwing it down there, because I'm a big, you know, proponent of running the football inside the 20.
Exactly. And when you take a look at what they were able to do, and this is a little piece of history, the Raiders have had 3 17-point leads this year that they have blown. They have been up in ball games, and they have figured out ways to lose it. You look back at this stat, in their first 61 years, Coach, they had blown only 5 17-plus point leads. This year, they've blown 3 of them. That's something else. So you got to give this team credit for coming back, but you also got to look at the Raiders and go, what?
Well, there's no question that, you know, obviously the Raiders are not the best team in the league right now. And, you know, we still got the win, and that's what's important, but they're struggling. I mean, you know, they made some mistakes in the second half that, you know, where they had guys open. Davante Adams dropped the ball over the middle. There could have been a critical drop, you know, but you have to look at what the Jaguars did coming back, because in times past, in the last few years, you know, this team would not have come back. This is a different team this year than we were a year ago, for sure.
All right, so let's hit a couple things. You said going into this game, they got to limit Josh Jacobs and his success. Josh Jacobs was among the top 5 in yards per scrimmage coming into this football game. They were able to do that. I want you to touch on how and why. But in that first drive, Davante Adams had a half dozen catches and a big score. So it basically was okay, we're going to try and stop this, but how do we stop that?
Well, every game's a little bit different. You go in with the idea that here's what we have to do, but you've got to be able to adjust. We've seen that over the course of this year, how much adjustment has to be made at halftime. They came into the ball game with the sole idea of stopping Jacobs, and forcing Carr to make plays because Carr has been struggling a little bit. They took their best player, and in the back end, in Tyson Campbell, and they put him on Davante Adams, and they said, we've got to go 8-man box and stop Jacobs. And they did basically stop him. The problem is there was a lot of one-on-one going on out there, and Carr got hot and made some throws. And, of course, Davante Adams is tough to cover one-on-one.
Yeah, there's no question about it. You don't just line up across from 17 and have success play in and play out. They decided Tyson Campbell, Jacksonville's best defender in the passing game, was going to go up against their best pass catcher. Do you like that going forward? Because sometimes I get a little worried. It's be careful what you wish for kind of. If you put your best up against their best and you're nowhere near matching him, it can get ugly.
Well, I coached Deion Sanders, and Deion Sanders even never covered the number one receiver. He always wanted to cover number two and take him out of the ball game. It was over. And you double up on the other guy.
Right.
So there's a lot of different ways to do it. But I think they felt that I don't think they felt that scared if they could hold Jacobs to where he didn't kill him. Well, it turns out that they couldn't do that.
Right.
And in the second half, that's when they started mixing it and playing more zone and rerouting Davante and the other receivers, and it paid dividends in the adjustment.
All right, so let's look at the running game. Travis Etienne, just so exciting. He is a guy that can hit you from a lot of different angles. He's tough to account for. The effort is real. I mean, this guy is tough. 109 yards, couple touchdowns, 28 carries. You pair that up with about 230, 240 yards passing from Trevor. He hit 80% of his passes. Passer rating over 100 and was 109 was his quarterback rating.
Right.
So now you've got two things that are starting to work for you that you can count on. Good run game, good passing game. How can they build off of this?
Well, first of all, before we go to Etienne, this was probably Trevor's best football game. And I think it was important for him to have this be his best. There's no question how he improved from the week before.
Right.
Now, Travis Etienne, it's interesting because that's a special cat there. He's proven that, to go 100 yards 3 weeks in a row. Maurice Jones-Drew didn't do that, and that's a pretty good running back.
That's true. Good company. The
one thing about him is I didn't see him that much other than when we were looking at him a little bit during the draft when he was at Clemson. The one thing I did see while he was at Clemson was he was a home run hitter. So that's what I thought he was. And I think we all talked about the fact that he was a perimeter runner. He's not a huge guy.
Right.
So running inside the tackle, that's not something that, you would do a lot with him.
Yeah.
You had James Robinson and that's who you go with. Well, this guy has proven to me that he's a running back. He's a full-time running back. I think he can do it all. And he's proven it. When he runs inside, he's one of those guys that when he gets in the crease, he accelerates, and all of a sudden you think it's a no gain, and all of a sudden it's 3 or 4 yards. Yeah. He always makes yardage. The only time he loses yardage is when he goes to the perimeter sometime and he tries to bounce it too quick, and they get a little bit of penetration. But this guy is an all-purpose guy. The one thing he's got to be careful with is the fumbling. And he can't get the reputation of putting the ball on the ground.
Very true. The thing that got me a little bit, and if I was looking at Etienne in a Clemson uniform, I would consider him an upright runner. He is low to the ground between the tackles and is able to do some of the stuff that you're talking about, pinballing through there and making it difficult to get a hold of him. I love that.
Yeah, it's tough to bring him down one-on-one. And that is what makes a runner, in my opinion, and when he starts getting into the secondary a little bit more and gets a little bit of feel of how fast guys are closing on him, which he didn't have to worry about at Clemson because he outran everybody, he's going to have some home runs. And the thing that we got to be careful of is we've got to be smart and use Hasty and maybe Snoop Connor if he comes along as a change up just to keep him from getting tired. Yeah. Because that's when you worry a little bit about the injury part of it. When you carry the ball an awful lot, I think he had, 30 carries in this ball game?
28 carries.
28 carries. I'm not sure that you want to give him 28 carries every game. You want to get more than 28 carries. That's perfect. But you got to use some other guys.
Yeah, and just as a comparison, he's now, alongside Fred Taylor, is the only two to go 3 consecutive games with at least 100 rushing yards and a touchdown. And then you mentioned the battering ram in Maurice Jones-Drew, what he was able to do. Those are 2 big individuals. Maurice Jones-Drew, maybe not the tallest cat, but one put-together big man. And so, I don't want to coach scared, but I want to be cautious.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has to be a kind of a committee situation. And that's always been Doug Peterson's way of doing things. True. But he's got to be confident in the other 2 guys. Yeah. Right now, he's trying to win football games. And the best way to win football games is to protect your quarterback based on how much you run the football. All right, that's what this team has to do. Let's
go to the offensive line. Another thing that I think you scored and graded them very high. And that's real important because if Trevor's going to turn this corner, that up front is real important.
There's no question that the offensive line's improving. There's been times where we've been pretty critical of some guys in there. You got Tyler Shatley, who's, kind of a career backup guy in there. You've got the 2 tackles that have been kind of inconsistent at times. They are getting better. And I have to credit Rauscher, the offensive line coach, because I think you can see them developing. When I look at the tackles, they're not deep setting as much as they did. They're soft. They were soft setting too much. Now they're being a little bit more aggressive on the set, getting the hands on guys quicker. Right. They've gone against pretty good pass rushes. Crosby and Chandler, even though Chandler's a little long in the tooth, those are 2 pretty good pass rushers, and they did an excellent job with them. And I think Shatley's coming along with just the physical part of the game and being able to handle a running game. So I think those guys have kept him upright, and they're opening some holes for the running game as well.
I like it a lot, and I just think that balance is going to be real important. We're going to touch on the Kansas City Chiefs and what this team might be able to do against them coming up as a 10-point dog, especially when we get to compare it to the last team Kansas City saw, which was another AFC South opponent, but it was the king. It was Derrick Henry, and that guy's just unbelievable. But they didn't have the passing game to go along with it. Right. All right, so a couple of other things. Special teams. Getting Jamal Agnew healthy and back was huge. Big return to start the second half. How important was that in your mind? Because they scored twice before the half, and then they came out and got the ball and went down the field and scored.
Well, 4 straight scoring opportunities when they were down was fantastic. And I'll tell you what, that's big. Yeah. I mean, in my mind, the game is really about big plays. And it doesn't matter whether they come defensively with an interception and a run back, whether it comes from a running back breaking a long run or a long pass. You got to put the special teams in there. When you get a 52-yard return to start the second half when they had just put, like you said, 10 points on the board, that was huge. You put them in a short field situation. Right. And of course, we capitalized on it. That's the big thing. And we were 3 for 4 inside the red zone. So there were a lot of positive things starting with that return right there.
Yeah. It just shows you that if you can come out of the locker room with a little momentum, you tie that together with a little momentum to finish the first half. And let's go quickly back to the second quarter, because it should not be lost on anybody that they were able to get points before the half, which they haven't done enough of. And I think Trevor Lawrence's 2 second quarter runs, scrambles, rolling left, and then the other one running through the middle of the field and setting themselves up for that score, those were major for development. And I think Trevor Lawrence is now becoming a willing runner, a more willing runner in the NFL.
Well, he should be. That's part of his resume.
Yes.
I mean, he's good enough to run. Now, he's going to have to learn a little bit when to slide and when not to slide, because he took a pretty good blow on the second one. Yeah. In fact, there was some talking going on with the linebackers because one of the linebackers, I think it was not Rodriguez, but the other one, Perriman, when he had the one where he kind of slowed down a little bit, looked like he was going to slide, and then he accelerated, Perriman pulled up.
Yeah.
Well, Rodriguez didn't pull up. Yeah. Was it Rodriguez or Gonzalez? I can't remember. Whatever the other linebacker is.
Right. He
laid the wood on him. When we got up, I think he said to Trevor, "You want to run? I'm lucky it wasn't me on the first one because I'm gonna lay a wood on you."
Right.
But the good thing about him is I've seen improvement in how he's operated back there in the last few ball games. Remember, I mentioned last week that he was now stepping up into the pocket. And a lot of that is because the offensive interior linemen are doing a good job and not allowing a lot of penetration. Rather than backing up, he's stepping up. Well, now he's sliding, and then he knows the front well enough to where the hole is. And if he has to slide, rather than try to force something, he knows where to go with the football, and he's taking off with it. And that's a big part of it. Nothing destroys the confidence of a defensive coach than when you get people covered or you get pressure and the quarterback runs.
Oh, yeah.
It just drives you crazy.
Even though I'm not crazy about some of the quarterback play that we've seen this year, there is nothing like the examples that you're talking about. Josh Allen may have an injury now. We're not quite sure. But when he took off and ran the other day, an unbelievable athletic guy that can do that. We know what Lamar Jackson can do. Now we saw Justin Fields in a regular season game rush for more yards than anybody ever has. That includes Mike Vick. And so you're right. It puts a defense on its heels big time.
One of the things that we're having a little problem with, and we saw it against the Giants, is when you put zone read into the equation, a guy like Trayvon Walker is hesitant about everything because the quarterback has the ability to run the football. He's proven now that he can take a ball, run the zone read and run it, and he can scramble. Those are really good tools in your toolbox as a quarterback. It makes indecision on defense, and that can hurt you bad.
All right, let's touch on a couple of guys real quick because we got to look ahead just a little bit to the Kansas City Chiefs and what's coming up. But we mentioned on the defensive side, Oluokun stepping up, making a bunch of tackles. He had 9 tackles in this game. He is leading the team in tackles. He's been out of position a couple of times in previous games. Looked like he had maybe one of his better games. And DeJuan Smoot, 2 sacks in this game, an impact guy coming off the bench.
Well, first of all, talking about Oluokun, he made one of the most critical plays in the game, in my opinion, in the second half when they threw that flare out to Davante Adams, and he came flying up there and he hit him, knifed him down.
Right.
That was a huge play because that put them behind the chains. And you had 4 straight possessions where we had them off the field. And that was a critical play, in my opinion, after we had scored a couple in a row. I think he's a good player. He has a little bit of a problem at times in the open field, tackling. But he's one of those guys that gets around the football. And I think that's an advantage for him. He can run. He's not afraid to mix it up. He's got to prove a little bit with the open field tackling, but I really like him, as a player. Smoot, at this point right now, Smoot's the best pass rusher we've got. He's one of those guys, and the reason he does it, Joe, is because of technique. The guy's got technique. He knows how to overarm, underarm. He's quick inside, especially when he's inside. They're using him a little bit more, though, on regular downs. They're spelling the outside linebackers a little bit with he and Key, even on the outside. So he's got to get more playing time. And he started the game with a sack, and he basically finished the game with a sack.
He made 2 huge plays. You're right. Now, again, Vegas jumped out to that 17-0 lead, but Smoot in back-to-back games has been able to get to the quarterback early. He had 2 sacks, like you said, kind of a game ender at the end. Josh Allen was right there. He was close, but that was Smoot who made that play. So spend a second on this, what you just said. He comes from the outside, which is Josh Allen's position, a little bit more in this last game as opposed to lining up inside. We already know he's a good interior pass rusher, but spend a second on that decision that Caldwell made.
Well, I think this. I don't think there's any question, and really I like Josh Allen. I mean, I think he's a fine representative of the Jaguars.
Very,
no
very,
question
very much
about
so.
it. but he's not playing to, I don't know if it's his potential, but in our eyes, he's not playing up to the potential that he shows athletically and all that.
7th overall pick.
Yeah. So, there's no question if you're going to get Smoot on the field more or Key on the field more, that's the position that you're going to lose some reps for Josh. I don't think you lose too many reps for Walker because Walker does, number one, he's a rookie and he needs every single snap that he can get as long as he's healthy and strong, and he's not tired. He needs to get some spelling here or there, but he does a lot more in other areas. When he goes inside on a pass rush, when they run a game, he puts pressure on the quarterback. He's not getting sacks because he's not an accomplished pass rusher. He's a power pass rusher. And if you look in the second half, there were a number of times where he pushed the tackle, and that's a good tackle, the left tackle for the Raiders.
Right.
He pushed him back into the quarterback 2 or 3 times. So he's playing good, in my opinion. Is he playing up to a number 1 pick right now? Maybe not, but don't look at him as the number 1 pick.
Right.
Look at him as a rookie that's got a chance to be really good.
And he's still a raw piece of rock.
Absolutely.
Given the positions that he can play across the line, which will show that versatility, but still a little raw in terms of doing one thing at a premium level.
One other thing, we had a guy by the name of Greg Ellis that we took with the Cowboys back in the day. He was the 8th pick of the draft.
Okay.
First year had 1 sack or 2 sacks.
Yeah.
Played for 10 years in the league as an outside rusher.
Yeah.
And it takes a while and especially a guy, he was a defensive end to begin with. The guy we're talking about was at every position on the field.
True.
I'm not disappointed in him at all.
Yeah. All right, let's look ahead real quick, just a little bit, because we got the Chiefs coming up, and we watched the game that Tennessee had against them, and Tennessee, I feel like they just beat the hell out of them. Okay, they didn't win the football game, but they were physical, and if they harassed Mahomes, they got to him, but they hit Kelsey a bunch. The Kansas City Chiefs struggled a little bit. Low-scoring game. What did they do? They end up winning in the end. That's what Mahomes usually does. But coming out of that game, what can Jacksonville do against them? Because I believe Jacksonville's got a more balanced offense, especially when they had Malik Willis in there, maybe even a better chance to score against Kansas City and make this game competitive.
Well, I think we have to. I mean, I think the game, they're averaging 30 points a game. The one thing you have an advantage in my mind when you look at them from a defensive perspective is that they really don't want to run the ball. Now, they'll run the ball some, but that's not really what they want to do. They want to throw the football. And, from that standpoint, you don't have to load up the box. So you can do some things defensively, which they were doing in the second half against the Raiders, to make it more difficult on Mahomes. And Mahomes, you can say whatever you want. If you keep him in the pocket, he has more trouble with zone defense than he does man-to-man.
It's true.
Because he's very accurate, and they've got some separators in on their receiver core. Yeah. Guys with speed that can move, and he can hit them. I think we need to, from a defensive standpoint, we have to force them to execute. And that means you say, well, their best player is Kelsey.
Yeah,
well, he loves getting involved in the zones and getting in the middle.
Yeah.
You just got to make sure you get him on the ground.
Right.
Because, again, every time you have to move the ball, it frustrates Mahomes. Mahomes likes to get on the perimeter. He likes to get the ball down the field. You've got to eliminate that. So from a defensive standpoint, I'm looking at it like we need to – I don't want to use the term bend but not break because I think you have to put some pressure on them as long as you stay in the lanes. But let's make them execute. Let's not give up a big play. Let's reroute some receivers and do that kind of stuff. Offensively, when you play against them, you got to score points.
Yeah.
That means – as a head coach, as I look at it, you got to be more aggressive. You can't just rely on dinking and dunking. This game, they're going to have to let Trevor go a little bit, in my opinion. And the problem we have is our receivers, we don't have those guys that are really home run hitters. They're guys that can get open, but they're not home run hitters. But if you don't like what he does on fourth down, what Peterson does on fourth down, I think you're going to be, if we get into 3rd and 1, we're going for 4th down. Get ready in this game.
And this is Andy Reid versus one of his proteges, okay? This is mentor, protege, all that stuff, because this is Doug Peterson, Andy Reid's old guy. Played up in Philadelphia, coached underneath him there and in Kansas City, and they know a lot about each other.
Yeah, that's the key. I was asked the other night on the 5th quarter, is it a big deal that he knows Andy Reid? I said, well, it's definitely a little bit of an advantage. The problem is Andy Reid knows him.
Exactly.
So whether they offset each other, you don't know. But I think anytime that you have any kind of a feeling about what a guy likes to do in situations, you're not going to know whether he's going to run the ball 15 times or 20 times or if he's going to throw the ball this many times. But what you are going to know, what he likes to do when it's 3rd and 1. What does he like to do when things aren't going well? What does he go to? Is it a bootleg? Is it whatever? Right. Those kind of things are advantages in some ways.
Well, I can't wait. Hopefully they'll make it a good game. It's a 10-point line right now. Great stuff, Coach. Always good. We appreciate everybody tuning in for Facebook Live or wherever you do find us on the 1010XL social channels. Big thanks to Beaver Chevrolet. Don't forget beaverchevrolet.com and on Phillips Highway. Would love for you to go by there. They support us. You support them. Check out pre-owned and brand new rides. Coach Campo, Joe C. Hopefully, we're starting to get on a little bit of a roll, and we may be talking about more wins than losses. By the way, I used to call him Johnny Depp, Chief. I'd call him Depp from time to time because he'd come rolling in with the mirrored oval frames and the long hair. Now it's like Danny Radcliffe. Have you seen this? You're straight Harry Potter, bro.
Daniel Radcliffe is a very good-looking guy, so I take that as a compliment, first of all. Second of all, the oval shades are not going anywhere.
Okay.
Do not make that mistake.
Let me ask
Third of all, you can also call me the man of destiny because I get a haircut, the Jaguars win.
Yeah,
okay.
That's good.
Help.
Yeah, get another one between now and next week. Cut a little bit more off. But let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Is Chief considered a producer? Is that what he is?
Yeah, he's a man of all things.
Is he a producer?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, he's the best producer I've ever been around. Now, I've only been around one. That's it.
You get the trophy.
I appreciate that, Coach.
Yeah. All right, we are out. Campo and Joe, have a good afternoon. We'll talk to you next week.